As we look at this particular chart, there's a couple of things we can see. One of them right here is what we call a disturbance after closing. This little bit of it looks like a tooth that's formed there. This is on the mitral valve, so that's one of the findings that we have. Another finding we've got is you can see a nice three-peaked kind of look would be here. We can see that's not quite here. There's a little bit of what we call an S1 split. But it's very minor. I've seen much more dramatic ones, so that's very minor. The other thing that we'll see as we look at the tricuspid valve, here we can see a disturbance before closing. So we call that a disturbance before closing. This is a disturbance after closing. And that as another particular finding. And you can see it consistently here on each of these. Right before, this is a pretty S1, so if we use that as comparison, you can see the noise, a little bit of the noise before and a little bit after, so that's a great one. Another one that's great, aortic valve we have here, is you can see that the height is great. This is about 2/3 the size of that one. So that is what we're looking for. That's a great curve, that's more of the ideal. Again, the same thing in the pulmonic. You can see that the S2 is about 1/3 the height of the S1. Also in the pulmonic, we can also see a little bit of this disturbance before closing as well here. So those, as I look at this, and we can see it again, so what we're looking for is consistency. If you see it in one particular place, that's not necessarily a good finding, but here we can see it. It doesn't show here, but we can see it in a couple of places here. It's very consistent on all of the curves there. Okay, so as we look at the great things I see in this chart, here is the work to rest ratio. So the work ratio is typically from S1, as we look here, and measure to the beginning of S2. So this is S1, and this is the S2, and that particular one should be half as long as the S2 to the next S1. So if we take a look at that and split it, we're looking for about a 2-to-1 ratio. So that's very good in terms of the rate for the heart rate. If that was very short, what we'd have is something called a tic-tac rhythm. It'd be too quick, but this is great. We'll see that in that particular one. Another one that's great here is the aortic valve, when we see that the S2 here is 1/3 the height of the S1. So that's a great finding. We like to see that. That's the right ratio. We see it again here in the pulmonic as well. So there's another great finding with that. I keep using this as a reference point. This particular S1 is a great example of a nice strong signal. You get 3 peaks, it goes up to a peak, there's a good solid 3 peaks, they're tight together and so forth. So that kind of S1 signal that we see in a number of places on the chart are all a great sign of a good strong heart.